So whenever you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll come with the microphone right to you and you can put your question right away to Hector. Hector, Ginna ELX is a spin-off of Ginna Incorporated. So just a few years ago, you have been here as Ginna, now ELX. What has changed?
Yes, exactly right. Well, nothing much has changed other than the fact that we're focusing much more on large electrolyzers, PEM electrolyzers as usual. So Ginna, as you know, goes back 46 years, and we continue that tradition, that core technology that was started back in the 50s with the GE, and we carry that over, but in a very focused way. As you know, Ginna Inc. has, and it still exists, as Ginna Laboratories, continues to be a powerhouse for all kinds of electrochemistry based on PEM. They still do a lot of aerospace applications, a lot of miniaturization for life sciences and other things. But we wanted to really focus, have a vehicle to focus on green hydrogen, large-scale, pressurized, high-efficiency PEM electrolysis.
And it's a strong sentence that you said in the title, that you say, the best technology at the heart of green hydrogen. You know, you're in among lions, you know, and others would say, no, we have the best technology. How
Everybody
do you prove
that? No, I actually like to talk about a little bit of that. The best technology can be many different things to many different people, but we focus on high efficiency, low cost, scalability, reliability. The typical things that matter to large-scale deployments is what we consider to be the leading edge. A lot of people can do high efficiency with small scale or low cost with not so much durability. We try to combine all of those sweet spots to make sure that we hit it right when we have to go to not 10 or 20 or 100 megawatts, but be able to scale it to the gigawatt scale. That's where actually where things reside, and that's why we talk about Ginna Inside. We like to think of ourselves more like your Intel Inside, if you may, inside a computer. Anybody can build their own computer the way they want. We will enable them to grow this industry to make, in the words of Department of Energy, maybe H2 at scale, having large deployments of hydrogen to be able to actually combat our CO2 emissions.
So you only produce the stacks, like Intel only produce the processors? How can I understand that?
You're going to get me in trouble with our customer base. No, we actually do whatever the customer needs. Okay. So if a customer requires a full solution, either we build it in-house or we bring one of our integrators to aid us in a local region. For example, in Germany, we might have one or two different integrators that we best to provide the solution to that end customer because they know the regulations, the permitting, CE marking, PED, all those kind of things that apply particularly to that region of the world. If we're going to go to India or any other place in Asia, we might bring one of those integrators in Asia to help us out. If we were going to the US or a very specialized application, we might do it ourselves because it has specific bells and whistles that that particular customer cares about and we understand best. So we are very flexible and we essentially work with everybody and anybody, even many times with our own competitors because they need some help on the PEM side of the thing. And we are not going to exclude them from that. We're trying to grow the overall market, not to just try to elbow everybody out of the way and keep it for ourselves. We're not one-stop shop. We're basically collaborating with everybody else.
But you still say you have the best technology, and this has a reason, because if you look at the history of Ginna, you worked together with NASA, you worked together with the Department of Energy and Department of Defense as well. So what was the developments you did in the 70s that made you such a specialist in electrolyzers?
Oh, so we're very grateful to most of the U.S. agencies because they've always supported Ginna one way or another. They have very interesting programs like the SBIR program, which is Small Business Innovative Research, which actually allows to fund innovative research and small firms like ours that will be pushing the edge every time on each one of the variables available in the technology. So, for example, if the Department of Energy wanted to reach 350 bar electrolysis, we were there and say, we can do it. I said, really? Okay, show me. So we go out and build a stack that actually can do electrolysis, not electrochemical compression, but having hydrogen and oxygen separated by a very thin membrane at 350 bar differential pressure. We ran this for a couple thousand hours. We demonstrated it works. And then we walked away and said, this is not what you probably want for your house. If you want something for your house, maybe we'll do electrochemical compression while we do our electrolysis maybe at 1 to 40 bar. And then we go to the next stage, going hydrogen in, hydrogen out. And in case it's much safer that way. And we can go all the way now, we prove it to 1,000 bar. So.
You use electrolyzers to make compression. to compress the hydrogen. It is, and it is without any moving parts. That's an advantage.
Well, that's the key. We listen attentively to our customers and even some of the large gas companies, and they say, well, the biggest complaint we hear from them is downtime from compressors, for example. So we looked at things, and why would it break down? Well, they have moving parts. What if we made something that has no moving parts, same principles, much lower energy than electrolysis, and still give you the work that you have to do to compress is there. It's plain physics, but lose as little as possible in the process of getting there. So yes, we do. Looks exactly like a stack, but it has a little bit more reinforcement on the metal side, on all the compression hardware. And in the end, you have hydrogen coming in, very, very low voltage to bring it up to pressure. Basically, it's once again thermodynamics and physics, and you get it up to 1,000 bar. Well, we first stated we can do this, but it's not our core business. But if you want us to, you push us in that direction. And they funded that project, by the way, and it's right now running for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And it's very exciting because now we might be coming up with a solution that is desperately needed in this industry to grow hydrogen. So it helps our other side of the business, which is our core business, making hydrogen.
I think it's always typical for Ginner that you always have clever ideas, like doing compression with electrolyzers. The same, another clever idea was to invent an alcohol sensor with your membranes. How did that work?
Well, as I said before, Ginner is really a powerhouse of electrochemistry. So whatever is possible in electrochemistry, we try and we make, depending on what the customer in front of us is. So if you think of a fuel cell, which is basically hydrogen and oxygen combining to create energy, what you create is it's a certain amount of amperage and voltage. Well, we do the same thing, not just with hydrogen and oxygen. We could do it with ethanol and oxygen. So when we did that in a miniaturized way, we can put it on top of your skin. It looks like the size of a dime. And the alcohol you ingest goes to your stomach. It metabolizes through your skin, eventually comes out. And that tiny amount of alcohol, when it gets to...
If you have any current then that's obvious alcohol in it, is it?
As soon as you create some microcurrent, we can extrapolate how much does that mean in your bloodstream and say you have this % of alcohol in your bloodstream in a continuous measurement instead of just being an alcoholimeter where you blow in and you say how much you have. So we did this, and we did this first for 10,000 units a year, and eventually we managed to get to 1 million units, and then a lot of companies got interested into this and say, well, so that means I can monitor the alcohol any given time in a continuous fashion with a micro fuel cell. We said, yes, okay. So they got interested, they made a big investment, and eventually they bought out that spin-off. So we recently sold that last year.
It's another spin-off then, yeah.
If you think about core Ginner, creating new technologies, and when they're mature enough, we spin up off into one business unit. That business unit eventually gets funding from outside into a bigger market, and then it goes off on its own.
Same thing about electrolyzers. Don't only produce hydrogen, they also produce oxygen. What was very important in your past when you produced electrolyzers for undersea breathing systems, and now you find life science applications for that.
Yeah,
you wouldn't dwell too much on that.
You're absolutely right. The nuclear submarines for the U.S. Navy is something we're very proud of servicing for the last 2 decades. They couldn't care less about hydrogen. They care about oxygen, obviously. They have all the energy they could wish for in a nuclear power plant inside the sub. But they do need to breathe. And when you have 100 men, 125 men underwater, maybe 2 miles underwater, and for maybe 9 months at a time, you need to be able to breathe. So we create...
Must be very reliable then. If
very reliable. You cannot
there.
afford not to work. A lot of people die. No, it's actually what brought us to the edge of the technology. See how much we can push the boundaries of differential pressure and reliability. And you're right. That also focuses on many other aspects, not only underwater or in space. With NASA, we have a long history, also creating this kind of applications for life support. But now we've entered into a new realm, which has been also a spin-off called Life Sciences for Ginner. So Ginner Life Sciences spun off as a miniaturized version of our stacks in a very, very, very tiny electrolyzer that could be implantable inside your body. And you might think, why would I do that? Well, sometimes you do need oxygen to help parts of your body work properly. So we recently did a spin-off on that. It will have incredible ramifications in the next 5 and 10 years. I'm not allowed to talk much about it. It's a joint venture with a very large pharma company, and you'll hear more about it. If you care to go into our website, if you want to have one-on-one meetings, we can talk about it. But it's very, very exciting times. And that spun off last year. It has incredible funding from this company, and we believe that it will go into clinical trials in the next 5 to 10 years.
There There are really exciting times at the moment, and not only in all the life science things, but also, of course, in the electrolyzer development technology. So let's focus on the electrolyzer that you produce. Well, you know yourself, most of the hydrogen produced by electrolyzers are produced by alkaline electrolyzers at the state being. Why do you think PEM electrolyzers will be the future, will take a big part of the electrolyzers market?
First of all, I think they're more flexible. But the reason why I think there's more alkaline in the market is they've been around longer. I mean, alkaline has been around for 80 plus years. PEM it's really a child in this development process. We're still climbing this knowledge ladder, and we haven't reached the top on the maturity level where I think alkaline is today. I think PEM has a great potential still for development and growth, and we keep on pushing the boundaries. So, for example, current density, differential pressure, things that are very difficult to do with an alkaline membrane. I mean, as good as alkaline can be and as efficient as alkaline can be running very low current densities, let's say 200, 300 milliamps per second, we're running 15, 20 times that current density in a much more compact space. Of course, we get much warmer than that, therefore more efficient sometimes. And in the end, we're able to do differential pressure at the membrane. Most alkaline applications have to maintain a very, very close differential between oxygen and hydrogen, otherwise it just breaks. So I believe that alkaline has been there longer. Alkaline was traditionally very, very cheap. It has very cheap materials to be built with, so it's easy to adapt in an industrial environment. But alkaline is not necessarily suitable for all applications. When you have tight spaces, when you have to react super fast in milliseconds, when you have to have almost zero startup and shut-off time, when you have to then continue to reduce cost, there's very little things you can do on the alkaline side to reduce cost. It's already very cheap. What we can do to reduce cost on the PEM side is we still can increase the current density. We have offers now. I mean, our offer out the door is 3,000 milliamps per centimeter squared, but in the lab we've gone all the way to 10 amps, 10,000. So it's basically one third the capex to produce the same amount of hydrogen, or produce 3 times as much hydrogen with the same hardware, and that's just the beginning. And that's just on one side of the equation. We also look at not just reducing capex, but increasing efficiency. Right now, we will operate something around 75, 80% efficiency. We can push it to 85% efficiency, or we can just move on the x-axis and produce much more hydrogen with the same hardware, and essentially bringing the cost down, either in OPEX or in CAPEX, depending what the customer wants. That's something very difficult to do with a very mature technology as it is alkaline.
And do you believe at one time you will beat the alkaline electrolyzers, or will they always be in front?
I think there's always space for everyone, and I think when you say beat, depends how you say beat. Beat in which sense? I think we can beat alkaline in the total cost of ownership of the molecule, which is what matters for the end customer at the end of the day. CAPEX will always be higher, or maybe not always, but for the most part might be a little higher on the PEM side of the equation. But when you look at the total cost of ownership of CAPEX, OPEX, durability, maintenance, repair, everything comprised in one molecule, we can now reach levels where never been seen before. Just 7 years ago when we met, PEM was probably 3 times as much as it is today. And in cost of ownership of the molecule, we were selling in California $10, $12, $17 a kilogram. Today we can produce at $5 a kilogram, and we have a project starting this year which is going to demonstrate $3 per kilogram. And that's something that I haven't seen anybody do today, and it's something that's, as I said, it's just the beginning. There's a lot more to come.
And it's also a question of application, of course. If you want to install a PEM electrolyzer in a refueling station, next to the refueling station, you probably haven't got the space to have an alkaline electrolyzer there. It's just a restraint of space there.
That's absolutely true, and I'm less concerned about trying to fend off alkaline. I'm actually more concerned about, can we compete with a reformer? Can we do green hydrogen at the same price or lower price that gray hydrogen is available today? We've seen for the longest time reformers being able to produce the kilogram of hydrogen at around $1.50, $2 kilogram at the reformer. And then when you travel to the end customer, by the time you get there, it's $6 or $7. If we can produce at the end customer already somewhere around $5, we're already beating them. And that's the big game. That's when you're talking 99.9% of all hydrogen sold on Earth comes from reformers. It doesn't come from alkaline, it doesn't come from PEM. But if we are competing with the right folks, which is to me gray hydrogen, we can do an incredible impact at the end of the day for the whole economy, not just ourselves.
So the reformers are the competition, but the reformers, well, can they produce green hydrogen? They couldn't. Oh, maybe with biogas, then it would be green hydrogen.
I call green hydrogen when you have no carbon. And the problem we have with a reformer, typically you start with a molecule of natural gas, methane gas, most of it. You break that molecule down, you get obviously hydrogen, but you also get CO2. So what's the point? I mean, if you start with water and you end up with hydrogen and oxygen, then you have zero footprint of carbon. And that's, to me, what really green is. And if, of course, you're taking green electrons from the grid. We just heard somebody a couple of talks ago talk about what green is. To me, that's green. Green electrons, green hydrogen, zero carbon footprint.
Would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions. If you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll be with the microphone right with you. It's not the case at the moment. Yeah, there's the first question. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Hector. Thank you very much for your talk. My name is Dr. John Lowe. I have a quick question. You're comparing alkali with PEM. I would like to get your thoughts on precious metal within the PEM side of things, if you think that has value in the future for cost reduction.
Yeah, there's still platinum in PEM electrolyzers, aren't they?
There's still patent?
Platinum?
Yeah, of course there's platinum. There's metal groups which are always important and expensive, but the reduction in metal groups today in the PMGs has been about a ratio of 20-1 just in the last 5-6 years. We have taken it even lower than that. Today, I don't care about platinum. The content of platinum at the molecule level, I mean, and again, let's see what people pay for. You pay for the molecule of hydrogen. Let's say you're going to pay $5 for the molecule of hydrogen. How much content of platinum is there in that molecule when you're creating it with an electrolyzer? If you're talking fuel cells, it's a different story. Even though they have lower loads per centimeter squared, the amount of hydrogen that gets processed through a fuel cell brings that to maybe 40 cents to the kilogram of hydrogen being used. In the electrolyzer side, when you look at the loadings, even if the loadings are higher than the fuel cell, because we process 1 million kilograms of hydrogen in one electrolyzer instead of some thousands, our impact to the bottom line of the molecule is about less than 1 cent. So am I moving the needle 1 cent one way or the other in the 5 kilograms of hydrogen? It doesn't affect me. I have better ways to reduce cost for the molecule of hydrogen, which is not necessarily the mythical platinum side of the equation. There's many other ways. One of those is we have gone from a cast system of building our MEAs, anodes and cathodes, to a roll-to-roll system. That reduced the cost tremendously. We went from 2 weeks to build a 1 megawatt stack to do it in 2 hours. So we can build all our stacks available today and for the future in a couple of weeks' time. And instead of, it would have taken me before the whole year to be able to produce just those anodes and cathodes. So there's other places where we can actually reduce costs tremendously, and it's not in the typical traditional places where people think about just platinum groups or other precious metals that we have in there.
Hector, I know you just have opened a hydrogen refueling station in the north of California. Is that the main market you're aiming at with your electrolyzers, or what are the main markets?
Again, you want to get me in trouble with Toyota, but no, I think that that's a great market. Of course, mobility is a fantastic market. We work with not only vehicles, traditional fuel cell vehicles that you see out on the road, but also moving equipment inside warehouses. There's several companies that work on that side. But I think the real key for hydrogen is what we call here in Germany power to X, power to product, and the energy storage portion of that equation. I see hydrogen as a molecule that can be used in the chemical industry, as a molecule that is a carrier for energy. And of course, mobility is one of those. Yes, you're right. We recently delivered another gas station in California, which is in Northern California, Sonoma County. You can come to the wine tasting
yes.
when we do the FAT. But it is...
Don't produce ethanol with it.
Yeah, exactly. Then we can go with a sensor as well. No, at the end of the day, it is exciting, but yet we have to see the flow and the volume of cars reaching a certain number to make it viable for the gas station to just have continuous operation instead of having very intermittent operation with very few cars. When that happens, and it will happen, and I've heard so many different things, not only from fleets of fuel cell buses, trucks, and of course Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, which are bringing their cars to California. But I think the biggest impact we'll see probably will be in the energy storage side, and when we start really replacing everything else that today is hydrogen delivered from a methane reformer.
Hector, when a customer comes to you and says, well, I need 100 megawatt from you, what did you tell him? Did that happen already? Yes,
yes, it did. Okay. Actually, it happened last year in the last Hannover Messe.
That's a problem, isn't it?
It is a problem and it is not. It's the kind of problem you want to have. Of course it is a problem because very few people have the capacity to build a 100 megawatt plant tomorrow, delivered in 18 months. So for that matter, when we were faced with that situation, and we anticipated that happening 3 years prior when we developed the megawatt platform, which is a 2 megawatt stack, and we're coming out in the market with 1 megawatt, and then we're growing it to 2. When we anticipated that happening, we said, okay, what happens when we have the typical ammonia plant that requires 100 megawatts or 1 gigawatt of equivalent of hydrogen? Well, what you need to do is you need to expand your manufacturing, your capability. We need infrastructure. So what we had done, which is a first in Giner time, is open the door to outside investment to come in to help us grow the capacity. We're not a public company. We're probably the only, or one of the few privately held companies here in the show, and also probably one of the few American, if there's maybe one American besides us on the electrolysis side. But we never taken, we really, been very few times we have taken any money from outside. We like to bootstrap ourselves for the most part. I think we've passed to a new page in our history where now we have to actually accept some investors, whether it's financial or strategic investors, to come in, help us grow the facility so we can actually address those opportunities. And it wasn't one. Last Hannover Messe, we got 3 people coming in and say, I need a 100 megawatt facility. I need 100 megawatts delivered in 18 months, 24 months.
So you might need strong partners in the long run. There's a lot of things going on in the industry at the moment. Even the old and capital strong industry is investing in this new electrolyzer industry. This is also a topic for us here on the fairground, because how can we become really big if we are sold to some biggers?
We don't want to be sold. Let me just state that out there. But you know, it's very hard to control when large groups come and have a very big interest in you and say, what if we propel you to this other level? Can we? And then that's where the negotiation starts. Fortunately for us in the past, we didn't have to worry about it. For number one, there were no 100 megawatt opportunities out there. But number two, we also service national defense. And it's very difficult to be acquired by a foreign company simply because we have a conflict with the US government, which would not allow us to be acquired. But putting that aside and assuming that you can separate those things out, there is a huge opportunity for investors. Large industrial investors here in Europe have approached us. Large funds in Europe and US we've talked to for potential funding that would bring us to that next level. We always like to keep an arm's length distance from becoming just a division of somebody else telling us where to go. But again, it's a little bit unpredictable, but we're open to the discussion and understanding where can we take this to the next level? How can we really bring hydrogen to what we say a large scale that can impact the way it should be with green hydrogen instead of our gray hydrogen today.
Hector, it was a pleasure talking to you. If you want to see Hector at his booth, just down the aisle, it's C47, just down the aisle. Oh, this aisle there. Oh, thank you, Hector. So thank you very much for this discussion. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your attention. And stay tuned for the next interview on stage.
Well, it's always
Hector,
a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you.